What's up, guys? This is Dave from the Lift Journal. I'm here with Ed Junquet, and we are going to be talking to you about foil drive first feels, just in general, like what we've been feeling for the past 2 weeks. I've been on it personally for 2 weeks. Ed got his about a week before, but then spent a little time in Hawaii. Ed, you want to talk about that experience?
Yeah, it was really fun to get on the foil drive before I went out. We kind of had a couple light wind days, so I was training for Patalimua and Maui to Molokai, and it was really nice to have with the light wind days, 1 to 2 foot surf. I was able to get some sessions in with 7 miles at a clip. One session I even got like 15 miles on the foil drive for like an hour and 40 minutes. So it was nice to keep the legs strong while I was getting trained up for that. And tested out a little bit in some downwind conditions. But now that I'm back, we've been fully frothing in the surf again.
Sick. So Hawaii, what were you doing in Hawaii?
I went out and did the Patalimua race, which is basically like a shortened Maliko run. It was about an 8-mile race. And then the Maui to Molokai was a 27-mile channel crossing across the Pailolo Channel. And that was a really cool experience. Also did a ton of downwinders on the North Shore, Hawaii Kai runs on Oahu, and some other Maliko runs. So it was a lot of sup downwind foiling. I didn't bring the prone kit. There was actually some surf in town, so just shortboarded a little bit as well. But it was a great experience. Got to see a ton of the foil community out there. There was about 120 racers in the 2 races that I participated in. And it was just incredible to see the level of competition and just like the stoke factor of everybody on Maui and Oahu.
So as far as my foil drive setup, as of late, I've been using the 48-liter Flux with the foil drive Assist Max and the big battery. My experience so far with it is it's been insane with the aspect of being able to flat water start into anything, just get up and go, lots of stability. I'm actually super surprised at how stable the foil drive feels once it's up, and in general just allowing me to get more time on foil, not pumping as much as I normally do, but also bringing that exhaustion level to a lower state, which kind of gives me more time on my feet. And because of that, I've been feeling actually better in my body. My back has felt stronger. My legs feel stronger, and I think it's that constant, just minor toe heel adjustments that I've been making. But yeah, Ed, what have you been kind of running?
So primarily, I got the 4.5 Portal Transmedium, 19-inch wide. It's about like 36 liters. I'm a heavier guy. I weigh 215, so it's a little small for me. I was able to flat water start it with the Code Foils 1300, but it definitely uses a lot of battery and a lot of juice to get me up out of the water. So I've been primarily starting in the waves. Like I said, 1300 I've been running, the short fuse and the 150 AR tail with the Cedrus mast. Actually, I happen to have a like 72, I guess it comes out to like 75, 78 centimeter Cedrus mast. And I kind of just leave my foil drive set up on that. It's a little bit stiffer, so it definitely, I feel it a little bit when I go back and forth onto the Code mast, that there's a little more flex in the Code mast. So with this setup being a little heavier and using a big front wing, I kind of like that feeling of connectivity to the foil. But yeah, I've been pretty much running this. I did do one session on the 860R. Those are my only 2 wings at the moment. And I prefer just to use the 1300. Most of the days that we're out, it's 1 to 2 foot surf, so it's smaller. I have only been using the 2-blade prop, and I've really been liking that. I haven't switched to try.
It's okay.
Yeah. I haven't switched to try the 3-blade prop yet. Dave has, and he's been really stoked on that, so I really need to try that. Been running it at medium power with that little bit of a 12-second boost to get into the waves. And then I kind of have to use that throttle control where Dave will speak to some of the settings that he's been using.
Yeah, so actually, I've been using the 3-blade prop. I had one day on the 2-blade prop, and it was epic, don't get me wrong, but the 3-blade prop, for me, maybe it's because I'm a little lighter weight, and that's actually something that I want to touch on. What do you weigh again?
215, so like 98 kilos.
Okay, so I weigh about 130 pounds, so there is a huge weight difference between the two of us. So with that said, we've been kind of using not too far off parameter as far as settings itself, but you can kind of tell who's been using what. Personally, me, I've been on the medium foil drive app as far as a setting, and then I have been going in the 60-70% range. So that allows me to use the 3-blade prop a little longer than maybe some other people, but it gives you the opportunity to have a little bit more torque to get up, so you can technically use a little less battery because it gives a little bit more push.
Yeah, Dave was out for like an hour yesterday, maybe like 50 minutes. And he comes in and said he had 60% battery left
Yeah.
after like 5-6 miles, which is pretty good.
And there was waves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So when first getting foil drive for your foil lessons, fast times foiling, were you expecting to be using it for personal use as much as you are?
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that I would really like it. We went with the shorter stator because of that, just to feel it out, and knowing that it would be good for the surf and for people learning to downwind. It would be better to have the prop out of the water and give yourself a little bit more room on the mast. But having said that, I feel like when we're going to be teaching the people, it actually is a little bit safer with the supboard, having the stator so high up, because the foil's not able to come so high into the water column. And so when they do fall off the board, it makes it very hard to taco onto the foil and also, get anywhere near the prop, because with a 130 liter supboard, only 15 centimeters out of the water, 99% of the time when they fall off from rail to rail on side, the foil stays underwater, the motor stays underwater, and they just have the board on the surface. That's the only thing that they seem to be worried about landing on, is the board. But yeah, speaking to it, I mean, I've been talking to Dave about it. He hasn't taken his kit off his board.
Yeah.
I haven't taken my kit off my board. It's hard to go back to just regular proning with the wave time that we're getting with these. It's just so fun.
Yeah, and to that point, I will be using it for lessons as well, but I will be using it kind of as a follow person, just making sure the person's safe and giving them tips and tricks and all that stuff. So for me, this is more of a personal use situation, and I decided to go with the 15 centimeter, which is, I guess, about 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And that really allows me to be able to power up, but also it makes it a little bit easier to pop up on foil. And it gives it the least amount of area between the wing and the pod itself, so that way you can turn and not constantly hit the pod. It takes some getting used to, but it is one of those things where it's such a give and take of being able to just stay on foil so much longer. And honestly, we all know that the fastest area of the foil is going to be right in this area. So being able to try to practice even in turns to keep everything high up is going to be way more beneficial to your foiling anyway. So it's just going to be more efficient. Coming from your normal disciplines in foiling, do you see foil drive being used more often going into the future? For me, I'm coming more from the prone world. As much as I really want to adapt to learning winging, it's really hard and it's totally doable, but with foil drive, all the stuff that I wanted to do in winging, which was pretty much going upwind to go downwind, or going up against just wind in general, staying on foil for longer, I don't have to worry about the wind shutting down. Prone wise, I think it's going to be hard to get this thing off, which is, I can't tell if that's a fortunate situation or not, because I am one of those guys that came from like a white longboard, black wetsuit background of just like traditionalism. But foiling is growing so much every single other week that in order to have the most fun, I don't mind becoming hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been kind of dabbling in pretty much all of the disciplines, whether it's, toe foiling, downwinding on the sup, wing foiling, and prone foiling. And for me, so far I've only really tested it on like, I guess 3 of the condition days, which would be wing foiling. It was like a windy day, a southerly, which was like side shore for us. And I definitely see the benefit to it because you obviously can just motor upwind, ride the swells back down, ride the waves, and you kind of have that freedom of going any direction. Whereas the wing, you're more limited. However, the battery life definitely gets more depleted going straight upwind when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then I did do a couple test days downwind. I was actually still on the sup board because that's what I started on. So it was like a 610 sup board. And I mean, for learning, for sure, that like it is such a great way to get your feet wet in downwind without having to struggle with that pop-up, because that is like such a limiting factor when you're learning to downwind. And then prone, I mean, it's just, I went, actually had a prone session yesterday without the foil drive. And it was kind of amazing to me to feel the difference and how much I really didn't mind the weight of the battery and the motor pod underneath me. So I really see myself using it for the most part prone in the surf, especially here in New Jersey. We have a lot of conditions where it's like 1 to 2 foot, 1.5 feet at 8 seconds. There's some lulls in between. So a lot of times when you're catching a wave, you might get, 4 or 5 waves. You might stay up for 2-3 minutes, but then you're kind of gassed out. Whereas with this, I'll stay up for like 30, 40 minutes at a clip and just pick off every single wave that comes through. And you could stay completely out of the lineup. We were in a session yesterday where there was probably 10, 15 longboarders. And I don't think we got in the way of one wave. We just catch all of the smaller swells that nobody's going to paddle for. And it's just such a blast.
Yeah. Or we putt out and catch the real swell before it even gets longboardable, which is, I got into longboarding because I wanted to surf waves that you couldn't shortboard. So now we're foiling to surf waves that we can't longboard.
Yeah, exactly.
An eye-opening moment that I saw of yours was not being able to get onto the beach in Avon. So you decided to just go through Shark River Inlet, and you were literally cruising through the inlet and just connected a bump, which opens up so many doors to so many different people. And when I saw that and captured that on drone, I was just like, all right, this is probably the sickest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like some of the towns, depending on the lifeguards, in the summertime, middle of the day, they might not let you go out. It's not like quite what Australia's got going on with the foil bans, but it's just, you got to go to the surf beach. There might be 50 people sitting at that surf beach. So instead, just using the inlet with the foil drive, it's a quick little 1/4 mile shootout from underneath the bridge, and you're right into the open ocean bumps. It's a really nice way to start a downwinder. Just chip right in, right out the inlet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I want to learn how to downwind, but I don't want to learn how to paddle. Like, I'm not into it. Like, I'm not into learning another thing that I have to stand up on and get momentum with. I'm way more interested in riding a smaller prone board and just getting into bumps powered up. Do you feel that foil drive is a cross-training tool, or do you feel that it's possibly the future of foiling?
I personally, coming from what I've been doing a ton of sup downwind training, and, I enjoy the foil drive downwind, but I still think that I wholly love the sup downwind aspect of it. So I look at it personally as more of like a cross training tool. Like I was saying before, when there's no wind, 1 to 2 foot surf, I go for a prone foil session. I might get 5-6 miles in an hour and a half session. But if I throw the foil drive on, I can up that in like an hour and a half to like almost 15 miles. So I'm getting like a similar feel to my downwind session, where when I'm motoring, it's kind of like when I'm cruising. When I'm pumping, it's kind of like I'm working for a section. And then when I'm surfing, I'm just doing my turns downwind. So for me personally, that's kind of how I feel about the foil drive. It like really almost mimics that feeling of downwind just in 1 to 2 foot surf on a glassy day, which is really cool to me because it's one of my favorite aspects of the sport right now is going downwind on my sub. And so the fact that I can mimic that on like the light wind days and no wind days when it's just 1 to 2 foot and glassy is just incredible.
Going back to a non-assisted setup, What were some pros, cons of that experience?
So yeah, going like before I left for the trip, I had some sup downwind days, and then I had some foil drive session days. Going to Hawaii, I didn't bring the kit with me, obviously, with travel restrictions of the battery and just kind of like limited time and knowing that I was going to be spending a lot of time on the sup. I really, going to Hawaii compared to New Jersey, the conditions are so good. So for me, getting on the sup out there it's just a dream come true. So for me, I didn't really mind the fact that I didn't have my foil drive. Obviously, there would have been some epic sessions to be had at some spots on the South Shore with some waves. But for me, just getting back on the subfoil, I had no second thoughts of like, oh, I wish I was on the foil drive to downwind right now. But I'm also a pretty average experience or above average experience sup downwind foiler. So like for someone that's learning to downwind, I could see the huge benefits to having the foil drive to just get you up and going and riding those swells. Or like for someone like Dave who has no interest in learning to stand up paddle, I mean, this is a home run. You basically have a downwind board, a wing board, a prone board, all in one kit here, and it's just go time. Like you don't need to ever switch anything out. It's so cool.
Yeah. So yesterday, you just regular prone foiled without the foil drive, your portal, which is almost about to go. But the day before that, you foil drove the same exact setup. So can you just give me a little bit of like what you felt when you got off the foil drive?
Yeah, so I came back and got a foil drive session on this, and it was great. Had a blast. The next day I went for a regular foil, and like I said, I switched masts, so it's a little bit different. I ride the code mast without the foil drive, and I ride the Cedrus, which is a little bit stiffer. But it was kind of funny how I didn't really mind the weight of the foil drive at all, especially maybe because I'm riding the 1300 S from Code Foils. So it's a little bit bigger of a wing, so it takes a little bit more for it to roll over. It's not as snappy. And so I really didn't mind the weight under the board for when I was doing my carving turns or anything like that. And then hopping back on the prone board was super fun. But man, like I know the foil drive is a good workout because my legs were sore. But holy cow, pumping back out for every single set is just a totally different workout once again. But it's they both have their positives, I think. You know, the lack of weight definitely allows you to pump further and easier, and you can feel that. But maybe it's because I'm still on the big wing, but like I really don't notice it as much with like, I don't feel like the pump is super hard. I like that when the pod touches, it's like an indicator like, oh, I'm too low on my mast, and it's really teaching me to stay higher. But yeah, I definitely will be mostly prone foiling on the foil drive.
Yeah, 100%. And you're just doing laps. Like when you and I foil drive, we're not even talking because we're not stopping. Yeah. We're just kind of every once in a while, I'll see you in the distance and I'll catch up to you, and then we'll take a wave together, and then vice versa, which is an interesting, cool experience. You know, with foiling in general, like I feel like you're spending so much time on foil that like you don't really talk to anyone. And I remember one of the first times that I went surfing recently, there was like a crowd of people, and I knew everybody, and everybody wanted to talk to me. And I was like, kind of like jonesing for waves because I kept getting into conversations. So like, if you're introvert, like foil drive's gonna make you even more of a sheltered person.
Yeah, that's one of the main complaints from my wife is that when I go out foiling and she's surfing, it's like, she's like, it's like I'm not even surfing with you. Like you're never sitting there to talk to me. I'm like, yeah, I know, sorry.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to let some waves go through just to hold a little bit of a conversation.
That's amazing. That's sick. What has been your favorite experience or session using foil drive so far?
Probably like right before I left for Hawaii, I wanted to see how long I can make this max power battery last. And so I was riding the same setup. I was just every probably third or fourth wave, I would start to pump. I'd pump for like 2 or 3 waves, and I made it last about 15 miles and an hour and 40 minutes, which at 215 pounds, yeah, I'm using a bigger foil, but I mean, that's way more than I expected. So that was really cool to go 15 miles on like a maybe 2 to 3 foot day. There was some consistency to the waves that day, so that definitely helped because it was a lot easier to just cruise from one wave to the next. But yeah, that was probably my most memorable session so far. Just being able to be on the water for an hour 40, hybrid foiling, power assisted, and just having a blast the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. So my favorite moment was actually doing the follow cam.
Yeah.
Dude, the follow cam is so sick. Before you go ahead and do it though, I do strongly suggest to probably have a few more hours under a foil drive because you can get real close real fast.
Yeah.
I was reviewing footage last night and I was like, oh shit, we're 2 feet away from each other. And when you're using an Insta360 cam, it's a wide lens anyway, so you look even closer. It is a fantastic way of capturing your friends foiling. From someone that does video, drone is really hard to do because you never know which way the foiler is actually going to end up going. But with foil drive follow cam, with an Insta360 camera or GoPro Max or whatever you're using, you can really just be right wherever you need to be pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Any tips for first-time foil drive users?
Yeah, for sure the flat water. And if you can get your hands on a SUP, if you don't have one, or just even like a older wingboard, something with some volume that you don't have to do like a sinker kind of start. I think like Dave hopped on mine for the first session and it was like 130 liter 610 SUP board. I think that just takes away a lot of like the popping up and the falls and just, taking it nice and easy. Like we had the motor setting at 100% still. And I found that like just motoring at like 75% was perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe even, I think there was a beginner setting on the app that we did use and it was definitely helpful, but you can even lower those settings even more because these things are just so powerful. And just keeping that nose down those first couple sessions is really tricky. You're just constantly, doing that dolphin kick where motor's in the water, motor's out of the water. So I think that if you can be on a bigger board, you'll get a ton of time on the foil drive. Those first, I think I did like 3 sessions in the flat water with it.
Yeah.
With that, and then had a couple sessions with the SUP in the small waves and in the downwind. And then I went and switched over to my prone board and I haven't looked back because it's just so fun.
Totally. And I agree with that. I think that the foil drive is a good learning, I guess, accessory to have. You got to kind of figure out like where your budget is for everything. Like to me personally, I think an e-foil has a lot of really great benefits to it, but the foil drive allows you to actually fly the foil. So going forward with foil drive, I will be producing more just little videos to kind of help you guys out. Any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out and I'll try to base my videos kind of around those. I definitely think that mast placement is going to be a big one. And I found a few little tips and tricks to kind of do so, to not only help putting the mast in the right place with those little countersunk bolts, but also just trying to figure out the leverage of where you want to be. Another is just kind of helping using the battery to your benefit. But I'm pretty psyched on this stuff. I think it's a blast, and I'm psyched to be doing this with Ed because Ed has been foiling for a lot longer than me, and watching him do what he does with foil drive kind of makes me really want to just keep going with it. The last thing that I'll kind of say is that I do also think that just like any other prone foil situation, a quiver of boards is not a bad thing, and I think this board will be used for certain things, but I am looking forward to getting on a smaller board that kind of has a lot of the same concepts as this board, but in a smaller package to be able to turn and also be able to pump a little bit better. Ed, if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Like Dave and I are kind of the opposite on that end of the spectrum with the boards because I'm actually, looking for a little bit bigger of a board. This one is a great prone board for me, but being that I'm heavier, it's like I said, it's hard for me to flat water it. So I'm actually like gonna size up just a little bit on my board for kind of like that one board kind of quiver for me. I'll use it for prone, and then I'll also be able to use it for foil drive. But yeah, I'm looking forward to working with guys. I know there's a couple guys locally that I've talked to that we're going to take out, just learning to downwind, and we're going to use the foil drive to help them just get into the bumps easier, get them reading the bumps, so that way when they go back out on their own and they're paddling up, they kind of have that little bit more experience out there flying. So that way it's just going to be a little bit easier for them once they are popping up more consistently. They aren't just popping up and then running into the back of a bump. So I think it's going to be a really fun way for guys to learn to downwind. And I'm really stoked to get more and more people into that.
Yeah. And I think another thing, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, why the foil drive is so easy for everything is because you can constantly just be able to redo everything. So think about it like snowboarding. You go down the park, you do all your tricks, and then you're able to go right up onto the lift and then try it again. And with foil drive, you can kind of use that consistency to your benefit. And I think that's going to be a huge thing for anyone just trying to consistently get better. You don't have to worry about the next chip in because you can flat water start, or you can take the smallest wave you've ever seen and be able to get into a situation. So it's kind of cool like that.
Yeah, just one other thing. I know every video touches on it, but obviously be mindful in the lineup, right? You can, once you get proficient on these things, you can take every wave. But, if you're at a crowded spot, like Dave and I have been going out and it's been pretty crowded, but we've been able to stay off to the side where there's just rolling swells. No one can possibly surf these waves. You could foil these waves, but it's just a way to keep the local surfers happy, keep us happy. We're not buzzing through the lineup. We're just, staying off to the side. We're super positive. We're not trying to create and stir up any pots at any of the local breaks.
Sure.
So it's just something to keep in mind. If you do get on foil drive, like, pick your spots wisely and, be friendly to the lineup in the fact that like you can stay off to the side and ride some unbroken waves and just have a good time.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's it. Feel good about it?
Feel good.
All right, cool. Well, until next time, go get on foil and have a great day. Peace, guys.
Shoots.